simpleness of your... Is now?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the simpleness of you...
It is now.
Yeah, okay.
Evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Meeting of Frome Town Council's Oversight Committee. I'm Mark Dorrington. I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. We have people online and here in the room. For those in the room, you all know by now, emergency exits over there, assembly points of fire, end of the car park, the toilets are at the end of the corridor. See over there. Tonight, Paul Clark, Laura, Sarah and Rachel will manage the minutes, questions board, participant settings and the IT generally. The meeting will be recorded and be posted on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand. For everyone else, please ask questions to the Q&A board. First item, apologies for absence. Paul, do we have any?
We have apologies from Andy Jones and Ben Stills.
Thank you.
Stills, sorry.
Yep. So somebody has to propose that. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Anne. Everybody?
Are you voting yes?
Yes, 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 yes.
Unanimous it is.
Yeah. Do any councillors have a declaration of interest for this evening's meeting? No, thank you. Has everybody seen the minutes of the last meeting? Is there any matters arising before I sign them? No. So someone needs to propose that we accept those meetings.
I wasn't there, so I'll abstain.
Thank you. So we'll split the other way then. Proposed by Anne, seconded by Fiona, with me. So
Majority.
Majority. Thank you. I can sign those. Any questions? Do we have any members of the public online anywhere?
No.
No. Any councillors got any questions or comments? No, thank you. Okay. I'll sign these in a minute. So first up, proposals for making improvements to the structure of Frome Town Hall. Who does that lie with?
That's me.
Thanks, Rachel.
Shall I just stay here?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have slides, so I don't need to talk to the slides. Okay, so this report comes from dual aspirations to make sure the town hall is in good condition and that timely maintenance work is undertaken in the light of various issues that have come to light this summer, but also to make sure our buildings are as energy efficient as possible. So to that end, this summer we commissioned 2 reports. One was Sally's retrofit report that she brought back to talk about last time, and 2 is the condition and maintenance report. So that was commissioned by we commissioned James Chin to do it from Eastern Bevan, and he produced a report which is additional to our quinquennial plan. the quinquennial plan picks up all of the maintenance issues, so the schedules, things that we can plan for and, you know, sort of activate against, and which is quite well programmed. Things like lift maintenance and things that need to be done, you know, in a series of 5 yearly, monthly, weekly checks. So that's what that one does. This report was to really look in depth at the fabric of the building and see how it's going. Everybody realised there were a few issues which have since been sorted out remedially and in the first instance, but we just wanted to make sure there wasn't something else happening in another dark corner somewhere that we didn't know. So the report he prepared, and basically it's an assessment of the current state. So you will be pleased to know that generally the building is in a satisfactory state, but he did stress the importance of some immediate repairs to avoid higher future costs like the ones that we've had this summer. The high cost of the repairs was on the plasterwork and also on the roof. You'll see in the condition report that he's laid it out very nicely in a years 1, years 2 to 5 and year 10 actions that he would envisage needs to take place over that time. It's set out like that because that's how we asked him to set it out. When we get to the recommendation, you'll realise that I'm suggesting that we go a slightly different path, and that's after further conversations with him and builders. Key recommendations for year 1 include external stonework, roof and internal areas, and that total cost comes to an estimation of £53,000. That is additional to the town hall maintenance costs. So that's why I'm here asking for separate money. There is also other things that need immediate repairs, such as the stair balustrades, window restrictors, which is new legislation, and some tree maintenance that we hadn't factored in. So following the report, just to really get the lowdown, Sally and Sean talked to James Chin and got numerous builders to come in to look for quotes for the pieces of work that we thought that we would be undertaking, so they were a bit more prepared when I came here to say this is what we need to do. And in the course of those conversations, it became obvious that in order to ensure the envelope of the building was tight and secure, that there were costs factored into year 2s to 5, particularly around the stonework, so parapet of the building, the window sills and the pointing, which has a line here, it has a line in the report, 2.02, which is £80,000. But when discussed further with builders, economies of scale meant that by coming and suggesting that we do those works, the years 2 to 5, in the same year at the same time, that bill would be more than halved. So hence, coming here with a slightly strange figure that seems to fit neither here nor there with the report. So that would produce a suitable envelope for the building. It would make it dry, it would stop water ingress, and it would provide ideal conditions for retrofitting. Now, alongside that, we've had the retrofit report, which was a very high-level assessment of the energy performance, but it does assume that the envelope of the building is fit for purpose. So the key suggestions there included enhancing the insulation in the loft, upgrading the heating system, increasing ventilation to combat condensation, and some of those are nicely dovetail with the James Chin report, particularly the ventilation in the roof to prevent dry rot returning. And it also highlights the importance of planned upgrades. So there's plenty of work to be done to put together a detailed project plan with all of those elements in a planned way over 5 years, and alongside with their costings. So the other part of this report is that in itself is a discrete piece of work, and we're suggesting that we put that out to tender as a discrete piece of work so that we've got a plan to then work to. It's not that there's any rush to do that, but it seems timely that we can then we really know what we're looking at, and we can plan properly over the next 5 years for these things to be, well, for the work to be undertaken, really. So you'll see the recommendations. Laura, have we got the recommendations? So the recommendations are recommend to Council that £100,000 is allocated in next year's work programme for works to the Town Hall and a retrofit plan. £56,000 use of existing Town Hall EMR and £44,000 general reserves. And that is divided into £90,000 for immediate repairs as detailed in the condition report, and then the further additional £10,000 to commission the planned report. And then the next recommendation is to delegate to the business manager and the marketing comms manager to implement points 1 and 2 through to completion.
Before we move to the recommendations, does anybody have any questions for Rachel? Thank you, Anne.
It's just for my clarity. I think I read in the report that the reason that some of those things were being brought forward from 2 to 5 was because they would all require scaffolding, for example, so it makes sense to put the scaffolding up.
Yes.
And so my only question is, if there's something in the retrofit plan that would also benefit from that, those aspects maybe we also want to bring into the 1-year plan, just again, because there's no point in putting up scaffolding and then next year putting up scaffolding.
Yes, although obviously we'd have to look at the costs, look at Sarah's face. I mean, we know that the retrofit costs are going to be high, very high, and they will probably decisions will need to be made on an individual basis as to whether to accept the recommendations and the plan. But without that detailed plan, we just don't know what we're looking at. So that's why they're coming hand in hand, really.
Yeah, so it's just can we reduce some of those costs by again bringing them forward at the same time that we're doing other work?
Potentially, but without the report, there's no way of knowing. I mean, we could do the retro report first, have the retro report work done, retrofit.
That'd be quite a good idea. And then we can know where we stand, and then if there are any economies of scale, as you say, of getting them done at the same time.
We may need to wait to get that done because people who are equipped to do that very high, very detailed retrofit.
So as long as there's nothing essential that we've got to do, otherwise the roof falls in, I think it makes sense to know where we stand and then plan accordingly.
You'll be pleased to know that yes, generally condition.
So just to summarise, I mean, that sounds eminently sensible to us. So we'll front load the retrofit survey and then only put the scaffolding up once if we had needed to put it up twice.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Sarah and Rachel, for bringing this together. I know you're really busy with tons of other stuff, and I think to me it sort of highlights something that we've been talking about in terms of going forward next year. We're going to be responsible for quite a number of buildings going forward, and whilst it's great that this place is in a generally good condition, I do think at some point we need to think about getting someone in to look after all the sort of buildings and facilities that we've got going forward, because otherwise I can just see that sort of it being dumped on you to at some point when you've got we got a problem sort of thing. So I know that's something that we're looking at for next year, but it just really highlights to me the need to bring that forward, I think. And the other thing I was going to say is, can we try and sort out the rats?
Yes. No, the rats. We can. But we're having a biodiversity emergency, aren't we? It's difficult.
I don't want to know.
Sean brings the rat man in on a regular basis, but
Yeah.
it's a kind of, we would need him to be in every day. Not that we've got more rats than anyone else, but perhaps they're just slightly more visible to us.
Isn't it felt that that we do have to be gentle in our management of the rats rather than...
Absolutely.
Can I say, as lead for climate and ecological emergency, I actually really don't care. Like, just get rid of them. Like,
What else would that take out?
no, just do whatever you can. So just,
There will be some...
I will be gentle with all other creatures, but not.
Part of the ecosystem.
No, get rid of them.
One of the reasons that I think the rat man said to us is this darned composting stuff that we have to do that encourages the rats. So if
we have one of the tumblers, right, and they're sealed, so they don't.
it's all the stuff around the bins and the rubbish in the compost as well.
Not to mention the bread from the fridge.
Yeah, we've got ideal conditions.
You said, so a couple of questions. So you said the separate from the town hall maintenance budget. What is that?
The town hall maintenance budget is for things like, well, lift checks, the
Okay.
annual checks,
Small.
checks, the electricity checks, all of those things that need done as a matter of course. They have, in most cases, it's legal compliance.
Okay, and that's a certain amount in a budget line every year, and then do we sort of put money into an ERM every year for this bigger stuff? And we're now planning to
We're planning to clean it out to do the major
okay,
works.
and would we be cleaning it out?
It would be, but we've got a budget of 20,000 in for next year. We've had a budget in for 30 this year.
Okay.
It also covers all the security, the alarms, things like that.
And I'm not expecting an answer to this tonight, but it would be really interesting to know how much in total we have spent on the town hall. Like, is that possible to look in spreadsheets and work out? You're dreading me asking that question. I think it's I don't think we ever see how much stuff is, and especially given we're beginning to make decisions, and we're not going to be taking on a building as big as this, so I don't think there's a direct comparison, but it would be helpful to see how it all adds up in terms of the actual building, and we could say the same thing for sort of the football club and for, I guess the cheese and grain is slightly different, but yeah, I just think it's interesting to kind of get a sense of, and did we think that it was going to cost that much at the beginning? Was there a sense that it would, okay, that's just given decisions that are coming up, it could be helpful to just kind of have a sense of, I don't know, I have no idea what that number would be. I'm guessing it's going to be quite high, but I just I'd be interested to know if it's possible.
In my experience, building projects always cost twice as much and take twice as long as you were expecting.
Yeah, and I think we need to be aware of that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do stuff, but let's be aware of it going forward.
If there are no more questions, we'll lead on to the recommendations, which I presume tend to take as one. Steve to propose and to second. Fiona and I vote in favour. Thank you. Number 4, Nikki and Hannah are going to give us a progress report on communities' elements of the work programme for the coming year,
We are indeed.
for the year that's going
Shall I
on.
start then? So there's quite a lot to digest in a minute. There's quite a lot to digest in this report from the communities team. So I'm just going to highlight 3 areas of work in the partnership area, including the Welcome Hub, the Community Hub offer, and the Promotion of Find, and then I'll pass over to Hannah. Slide 1, please. Yeah, just. No. That's not what I was expecting. I was expecting a picture of Ukrainian refugees. No. Shall I just carry on anyway? Okay, so Frome Town Council continues to oversee the running of the Welcome Hub for all displaced people in Frome and the surrounding area as part of the Caris-funded contract secured until March 2025. It's led by Frome Town Council in partnership with the Somerset Resettlement Team, with Caris, and we have the Frome Welcomes Refugees Advisory Group. The objective of this project is to support the 150 plus displaced people in our community. Through effective support, signposting and English language lessons, the team protect, advocate and promote the well-being of one of our most marginalised and vulnerable groups through equity of access to statutory and community provision. What I mean by this is that the Home Office system is a hostile space to navigate for displaced people, particularly with English as a second language. The Hub advisors negotiate the system alongside our displaced communities and host families. They have lived experience of being in this system. The Hub team support in areas such as food, work, transport, housing, money and resources, education, skills, and through the existing community offer, the areas that are the foundation for good health and well-being. These areas align to the NHS 5 Steps of Wellbeing programme, which support people to achieve, well, there we go. I knew it was there somewhere. A sense of belonging, have autonomy and choice, have purpose and mastery in their own lives. The Hub also includes cultural experiences, such as the things that went on in Refugee Week, with the celebration and trips to places like Stourhead and Montacute House, which enable people to simply have a moment of normality. The Hub works in partnership with other hubs across Somerset to ensure positive learning and knowledge of good working practices and access to necessary training. An example of this is when the Hub advisors support with school placements, securing council tax reduction, and working with our resilience team to reduce household energy bills. We know that this contract is up for renewal in March 2025, and although the asylum plans for 2025-26 have indicated the need for 738 bed spaces across Somerset, and the minimum criteria includes community organisation support, we do not know what this will mean for Frome and the security of this service. Slide 2, please. As such, the importance of the wider community hub is intrinsic in continuing support for all residents across the town. We are working in partnership with voluntary community organisations to strengthen the offer in Frome, not only in the town hall, but with a network of organisations and people. It's a simple model that can be recreated in other places and spaces. By working in partnership, we can create sustainable, resilient local systems which will not replace statutory services, but with the current pressure on the NHS, education, children's safeguarding and adult social care, the concept of social prescribing and mobilising communities not only makes sense economically, but will ultimately help people navigate these tricky times. Our community offer now includes support from Citizens Advice, Safe Links, which is domestic violence support for women, and a Mind Youth Matters group. Ultimately, we recognise that health and health inequalities are strongly influenced by the social determinants of health, the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work and age. And as such, we are taking action to improve the health and health inequalities of our community through a robust delivery of commissioned local early help services in the town hall that can also be placed across the town. Slide 3. Shall I carry on? Thank you. So this is some information from the citizens' advice. I have more, but I was just going to highlight some of the things. So due to the high numbers of local residents visiting the citizens' advice at the town hall, their intention is to now increase their face-to-face service to meet demand in Frome, working alongside Fairfrome. So 120 clients from April to September 2024 presented, raising 396 issues in total. So we've got further information on age, ethnicity, issue type, if anybody wants to have a look at that. Frome Town Hall has also become a referral point for Fairfrome Food Bank because statutory services have been cut or no longer provide this service. We have stepped into this role to minimise the negative impact on our community in accessing services. Slide 4. Thank you. So this is about Find. So the communities team continue to promote the Find directory as a valuable community resource for local residents and professionals alike. Melody did tell me to tell you that she's got the amount of clicks that are on Find, if anybody wants them, and they're increasing. The directory is promoted at every community event, but the latest targeted initiative was through the Lunch Bunch project that used the medium of play to engage people. The objectives of this project were to meet with adults in our community who may be more socially isolated, to give opportunity to meet others informally and find out where and how they can both be supported by and be actively involved in their community. A simple solution to prevalent issues of loneliness and isolation. I just wanted to end on a story, really, to kind of demonstrate a bit better what I'm trying to talk about. So I was out and about, and we were talking up at Victoria Park about green space development. And I met a family and they had really complex needs. So she talked about the value of having free places where she could take her family, because she was on a low income, but it would meet the needs of quite a spectrum of children from age 17 to 3, one who had disabilities. A few days later, she presented at the town hall for a Fairfrome referral. She was really upset, and she used the terminology of blame quite a lot, blame and shame. She felt quite embarrassed. So because I'd met her before, she recognized me, so it kind of instantly there was an ease with which we could talk. So the value of this interaction, it wasn't just about feeding her children, but we were able to quickly connect, and then I could talk about accessing citizens' advice for her council tax bill, and the Good Heart and Food at 5 for low-cost social spaces to hang out and eat. So it was basically this really quick interaction that will alleviate the pressure on statutory services, and it means that we can really quickly have positive changes in people's lives. Pass to Hannah.
Thanks. Yeah, that story really shows how important it is to have that face-to-face trust-building interaction, isn't it? I've picked out 3 things as well because Nikki and I like to match. Nearly wore my black dungarees today, but didn't. So I'm going to talk about the neighbourhood and street level work, the town-wide engagement, and the community organisation support. So the neighbourhood work. So there's a focus on our work on neighbourhoods for a few reasons. We know that street level localities really matter. We've looked before at how that really came to the fore in lockdown. in the COVID crisis. Neighbourhoods that were already well connected were ahead of the game when it came to finding support and mutual aid. And in a town like Frome, there is a lot of support available and lots of different ways to link into services and make social connections, but it doesn't always find its way to the people who need it the most. So having feet or ears on the ground to physically go into those areas that we don't hear from as much is amazing for effective community development. It's really important. So after a pause this year to focus on the town-wide engagement, we've been able to start working in a strengths-based way in some areas that we've identified as being most in need. And that might be because the data has indicated high levels of deprivation, or because previous work or the engagement work has shown a need, or it might be because an area is quiet. When Nikki and I went into Stonebridge last year, the year before, whenever that was almost the framing of our question. It's quiet here. Why? Is it because you don't need anything, or is it because there's something missing here? So the first neighbourhood, which is on the next slide, that we're focused on two main neighbourhood areas. Is there one? I've put them in the wrong order. Can you go on to the third one? So yeah, back. There, this one. Yeah. So we're focusing on two main neighbourhood areas for different reasons. So in St John's, we're building on previous work and identified priorities. There's been a big gap since spending time here. So Emily is building relationships again in this area and setting out to listen and learn. But there is a focus this time on building community around the land that has been offered by Asta on which to grow a community growing space, which is what was suggested from the previous work as a welcome solution to a lack of a communal social space in that area. And that might even evolve into something a bit more comprehensive here, because it borders some of the land that's on the potential devolution table. But we're being careful to be led by the community here and make sure it's a project that's owned from the outset by the people that live there, because it really is a very local neighbourhood project. And then so go back to slide 2, because the second area, target area at the moment, is the Mount. So the Mount's frequently been referred to as a forgotten corner of Frome. And there's several reasons for choosing this area to work in right now. So again, having capacity in the form of people in the engagement team really gives us that on the ground advantage. So Liz has been busy building connections. It also comes at a time there is energy bubbling up in this area again. There's quite a few things happening at the moment. Super Roots have been running a campfire club with young people. That's some of their photos. There's a long-standing and still committed gardening group at the lodge, the Mount Community Association, or Keyford Friends, I can't remember the latest acronym, but they are looking to rebuild or restructure and grow capacity in that group again. The school's got a new head teacher, and last but not least, the Key Centre is obviously on the table as a potential devolved asset. So by the time that happens, if it does happen, we'll be ahead of the game in knowing what matters to the community here and how the centre might fulfil its potential as a valuable community resource, and who might be best placed to play those central roles in that process. So we're putting our go slow to go fast money where our mouth is here. So having those things in place when we need them. Just a sort of side note on timing, each area is different, but generally we kind of anticipate going into a neighbourhood fresh, so having a few months of really listening and spending that time building the connections, and then a few months of getting projects or identifying things going, and then looking to kind of step away with some more like arm's length support, but it kind of obviously needs to be tailored to each area and depending what comes out of them. So the next slide, if you skip over the one we looked at, is about some of the, alongside these targeted areas, we've also always have been busy with various bits of more responsive work. So these two examples are Milk Street Green in the Trinity area and Broadway Community Gardens. So that kind of support tends to be for community organisations or groups that are already invested in some kind of project. So it could be supporting with engagement. So with the Trinity community group, helping them to engage with their wider community and make links with the school, looking at how they might redevelop that green space. And also supporting groups as they might be taking on more responsibilities or changing structure, so like Broadway, transitioning from a campaigning group to a community growing space, or the Mount Community Association refreshing. And then the next slide is Frome Neighbourhood Network. So they are now an independent group, and they come under the Sustainable Frome sort of structurally, but operate with their own steering group. And they had an incredible launch of their Transition Streets project. And this is something that they work with Transition Town Totnes to bring to Frome. And it's a very exciting project. It's about neighbours coming together with some resources to help them have conversations about the climate action that they can take together on their street. And it's quite simple, and sort of ticks all of the boxes. It's like, it's green, it's healthy, it's social. And they've had 5 streets complete so far, with lots of amazing feedback from those streets. They recently have been struggling with capacity in their steering group, but they have had some recent external funding, not Frome Town Council funding. They've managed to source it from elsewhere, and have just appointed a new admin coordinator. And so they're going to be building their steering group, but I know that they're also keen to have conversations with Green and Healthy and the new Climate Action Lead here about bringing people in to support that. Okay, so the next one is just about the townwide engagement. This has been our biggest project of the last year, but I'm not going to dwell on it too much here because lots of you have been part of the various steps along the way, so you know it well. And we've had the opportunity to share a lot of the findings and next steps at various things, especially the football club meeting in July. But just to say, so working within various constraints, we feel really proud of the work that pulled together the findings from the 3 areas: the secondary data, the online survey, and the face-to-face work. So we've really achieved that objective, which was to build an evidence-driven portrait for Frome based on data and community voice and influence. Tick. So it's already been valuable for shaping future work programmes and strategic priorities, and we'll continue working with stakeholders and partners to deepen our understanding and share the incentive to take shared action on some of these priorities as well. I just wanted to take the opportunity here again to blow Liz and Emily's trumpet for them, because their approachability and their thoughtful planning meant they reached a wide range of voices, and they were really diligent about recording everything, which meant that it was actually useful and valuable, so we could use it. And then the other great outcome of that work was the positive feedback that we gathered along the way, from people feeling like the town is being listened to. So, so then the next one is about community organisation support. So we've always known the value of supporting the community organisations as much as we can. They've got the resources and the reach to be supporting the wider community. And essentially, this is what we're talking about when we talk about early help, in various forms. But with the backdrop of a series of crises, I suppose, might be an overused word, but years of diminishing public investment, public funding and available grant resources means that it's a lot of these smaller groups that are hit the hardest. And we really felt it in Frome with the closure of Active and In Touch. I think that sent a bit of a ripple of unease, followed closely by a precarious situation with the community fridge and then Share. And it is particularly hard in Frome because we have so many groups. The number 190 keeps getting referenced, but I'm not quite sure where that came from. It's a lot. So it means there's lots of groups fighting for the same shrinking pots of funding and volunteers and trustees and their skills. So the solution needs to be more than just funding. And there's a lot there around kind of adapting to survive in a different kind of climate. So what's our role in that? Well, so back in March, we hosted a big lunch. Is that it in the bottom right? Anyway, we had about 80 people from various organisations come along. And together we identified key priority areas for the groups and really kind of gave people a chance to tell us what were the issues for their groups. So they included things like organisational sustainability, looking at alternative models, volunteer recruitment, community engagement, equality and diversity, venues, other resources, skills, etc. So we also realised that what organisations valued about that was not just being able to share those things, but also the chance to network, put faces to names, learning what else is happening in town, which is actually a key element to that being agile and moving away from siloed working, is being able to make those connections. So the natural follow-on from that was that we've been hosting regular networking sessions since then, and each of those focusing on a different topic. And we are, as we go, pulling together all of the intelligence from those and looking to put on another big lunch in the new year to kind of collate our findings and share those and reflect on them and maybe put some concrete actions together. There's definitely something around volunteer information sharing that I think we can support, and also thinking about that sort of higher level about how we might be creative about local funding and fundraising, making the process more community driven potentially, and also being able to pull in bigger amounts of funding externally into Frome so that our organisation network is not so heavily reliant on Frome Town Council grants alone. So to wrap up, that's it. We're doing lots of other stuff too, but we've said enough. But any questions?
Thank you, Nikki and Hannah. Very useful update. Anne's got a question, I guess.
It's thank you. I think from my point of view, the work that your team are doing is what Frome Town Council is all about. So it's all about supporting the community of Frome, led by those community groups and organisations. So they are our way in to the community. So that's how we get most benefit, by working with the assets that we've got in the town. I'm conscious of how long community engagement takes, like a generation, and the amount of time that you perhaps have to spend, possibly in Nikki's area of work with partnership, particularly with displaced people. Their lives are so complex. If I just think about a resident of Frome who's been a resident of Frome all of their life, their life is fairly complex. But if you displace them from their support network and everything that they know, that must be even more complex. So working with an individual family, it's almost impossible to measure that in terms of the time spent and the outcomes achieved, because it must take hours of work. And I don't know how we square that circle. How do we measure impact when we're either doing something for the whole of town, but it's a small change, or we're working with one family and it's life-changing? And I don't know how we put one of those against another when we're setting priorities. I just don't know yet. I'm learning, but I don't know. That's it. It wasn't a question.
First of all, echo, thank you. I think for various different reasons, it has felt like an area of work that I haven't been able to kind of get a bit of a grip on, or kind of like fully understand for different reasons. And actually that was like the clearest overview of what you guys do that I've sort of heard, and it was really, really helpful. So that's like number one. I've got like lots of questions and like things. I'm trying to think how to sort of, where to start. I mean, I guess it's almost sort of slightly following on from what Anne said. I'm just really interested in what you think is like the thing that you do that you feel is having the most impact, and and I guess I'm sort of curious as to where you see this area of work developing and where you think it's going. Are there like opportunities that you think, for things that you could do more of or explore? Where do you see yourself having the most impact? Like, what is the thing that you think this is making a difference in Frome? Is it everything, or is it like a couple of things?
I think it's so broad, and even just in talking about the neighbourhood work, you can't talk about one neighbourhood because each one is different. And so where I think we have the most value is having that capacity to be able to, what's the word? Not diversify, adapt and yeah, and have, yeah, people. Yeah.
Neighbourhoods that you feel, is that the sort of thing that you feel like, particularly maybe with your area, that you feel is really valuable, or is it?
I mean, I think it's all valuable. It's hard to pick because that's sort of that's the kind of point, isn't it? Having that all-encompassing thing, so that you're supporting the organisations that are maybe working with, so like the Transition Streets project, for example, might be working with some of those residents that are already quite active and quite committed, but they're working together to affect change in their area that might then have an impact on some of the other people in the street that are maybe less active. So, but then we also, at the same time as supporting some of the people that are already activated, that's the kind of point of the neighbourhood work. It's trying to pick up, I kind of think of it as like a mixing desk. You're sort of picking up the bits that are dropped in other bits, if that makes sense.
It's also, yeah, I think it's also about, what's going on in terms of kind of statutory services is changing and shifting. So there were places where statutory services were that they just haven't got capacity anymore. So if we're not going to let people, fall through the net, it is about that kind of early help response, which is community based. And I think that that's somewhere that we've got flex, that we can kind of step into those spaces.
So yeah, I think because we talk about early help a lot, it's that sort of like level, that community buffer before people get to the very expensive and patchy services underneath. And that, yeah, that makes sense. Can I just ask a slightly more mundane question? Is how much of the Welcome Hub and community, how many people coming are displaced people and how many people are like?
So the Welcome Hub is specifically for displaced people. So
it's sort of encompassed into how much is the Welcome Hub and how much is the community hub now? I
think the community hub is an extension of that. So it's very specific support for the Welcome Hub. So working alongside the resettlement team. So that's 150 people. And I've got other stats, but it's not to say that they wouldn't access other services, but it's really specific support that they have. So it's about those people understanding what's going on in terms of changes in the Home Office or things like that.
I guess I'm just curious as to what sort of like level is it that's welcome and what's community at the moment?
Well, it's one day for the Welcome Hub.
Oh, okay, so it's a different.
Yeah,
so I didn't
so
see that on the graph. So how many days a week is it welcome?
Sorry, That's fine. You can get that up, and then there's a kind of a menu, a weekly menu of. I don't think menu is the right word. Timetable. That's it.
So I guess I'm just
what's
thinking
going on?
The percentage of people in Froome who are displaced versus not is going to be. So I'm just
I mean, that's externally funded, though.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. Okay.
That gives you an overview.
Okay,
there.
got you.
So Nikki, just which days is the Welcome Hub?
Tuesday
column.
Yeah.
And then the other days are the kind of other functions we have for the Community Hub more broadly.
Okay. That makes sense. And is it, because I also come back, and this is again a broader question, but I do worry a lot about the over-reliance on volunteers and on like individual. And I think that's where the conversations around the different sorts of funding come in to me as well, like finding ways to pay more people in the community for their time. Do you sort of feel that? Because I'm just so aware of how much, do you feel there's a bit of an over-reliance on volunteers? And
just to clarify, do you mean volunteers for the town council or volunteers for other organisations?
The only volunteers that we've got in terms of the Welcome Hub are English language volunteers.
a bit more broadly though, in terms of the community organisations in Froome, like is it a sort of issue that
Yeah, I mean, it was the focus of one of our community organisation networking sessions. It's a long phrase. And again, it's different for different organisations. There's even a conversation around that word volunteer, because they have a lot of groups that just saying the word volunteer implies we are the organisation and we're giving you a job to do, whereas some people are more collaborative than that. And yeah, there's the volunteer question is a big one and has come out as kind of probably the top theme for community organisations, but I don't think there's a simple solution, and it might be a mix of things.
And I think it's really important that it's not an instead of, because, you know, they're very skilled practitioners that are in different fields that can't necessarily be placed by volunteers because they haven't got that experience and knowledge, and it's just, that's not a sustainable model.
I completely agree. I guess I'm worried that there's there's too many volunteers and not enough paid people is what I'm kind of, but I'm using volunteers basically unpaid as not to question anything about their level of skill or anything, just that there's a over reliance on it. And do you feel that there's like, so I'm also just aware that there's lots of like, I feel Froome is, as much as we sort of like to think that we're sort of slightly like different and protected from the wider world, we're not, and particularly in terms of like wider, I don't know how to say it, like wider cultural shifts. I guess I'm thinking of like the rise of misogyny and hate speech and racism and all of that sort of stuff. Like, is there, I don't know where I'm going with it, but is there like, do you feel like that sort of beginning, I don't know, to sort of, or is there anything that you guys do around that? Or, I mean,
again, in the Welcome Hub, there was some work done around in the Welcome Hub when it was really kicking off 6 weeks or so ago, and there's also, you know, domestic violence support in the community hub. So it's there in the work that's happening in the town, but I don't think there's a particular strand where we're looking at.
no, I guess I'm just wondering whether there's sort of a need for more of that. That again, what you're talking about is the sort of when it reaches crisis point. Again, I'm thinking that almost like early help, like, no, it doesn't quite translate across, but like sort of to try and combat some of those and challenge some of those like ideas from taking hold in our community. And
well, there's initiatives like White Ribbon and you know, multicultural Froome, and so yes, there are things in the town, but it is Froome's problem as well as its wonderfulness is that we have all of these things going on in the town, and it's a matter of knowing about them and bringing them together, and that's where the community group networking is really working well. People who come to that talk about it. It's wonderful to put names to faces and see all of these people in the room, and you know, and people working on projects because they've networked together in that room. It's really good.
Echo what Anne and Fiona have just said. Thanks very much. Great stuff. My question really is about, you mentioned how you move from engagement to going back to various areas, community areas. And I think was it Trinity, St John's and the Mount were the three you picked out. What about what I would class as new Froome, Edmund Park and the Sandys Hill Lane and everything that's going on around where Anne lives?
Yeah, they're on the list.
Yeah, because yeah.
And I think that's sort of why I mentioned.
Unfortunately, it's something at planning we bang on it every 5 minutes, and you know, Edmund Park is the classic. There is no community space there really, apart from a bit of wasteland that should be a school. So how do we create a community there, which I think some people are really trying hard to do, aren't they? And B, how do we integrate those new areas within the town and get them engaged and stuff like that?
Yeah, and actually, and Edmund Park, that was from doing the pop-up engagement work, really did highlight as a priority area as well. And I think that's why I kind of referred to the timescales, because obviously as you're withdrawing from one area, you can start to, you know, invest time and resources into a new one. So, yeah.
With Sandys Hill Lane, I think they're moving in there. Is that right, Anne?
I think they are.
I think some
yeah.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be a good opportunity to sort of get in there first while people are sort of keen and, oh, I've got a new home and build a, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And new developments are really great places for community building because everyone's new.
Yeah.
It's all, everyone knows that you're, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And hopefully the Geek Centre will be, fingers crossed, useful for all the other stuff being built around Anne's house.
So how are you prioritising your work? When you identify these new communities, how are you sort of moving up or down a list to go and see?
In terms of which areas to target?
Yeah, because as
Yeah.
Steve says, you know, in planning every week we see a new community
Yeah, of
potential move
course.
in. So
Yeah.
how are you targeting you and your staff into, we better go and see them,
Yeah.
see them. How do you work that out?
With using that mix, you know, as I said in the thing, we've like a mix of what secondary data is there already, but also what we've picked up from being out and about. And having people in the community means we hear things. So, you know, if it's like, oh, this area's struggle, but we've got, you know, a team and that's great, but they also, there's something about if you spread, there's no point in spreading them too thin because otherwise there's no capacity to follow things up or really, you know, do the proper work, which in a way is more damaging than not doing it at all. So I think there's value in really focusing in on an area at a time, at the same time as doing all the responsive stuff in the smaller areas.
I think that the big community engagement, or whatever we called it, that there's all sorts of fantastic data in that is going to enable you to plan for the next 25 years. The community engagement that's going to need to go over the next generation.
The other factor on what next, what geographic area we work on next is going to be, you know, excuse me. If we take on a load more open spaces, we're going to need to work with those communities to go, okay, what do you like here? What would you want to do? So really the only solution is to increase the staff body by fourfold, I think.
No worries, no problem, Paul, no problem. Paul, you can. Am I dreaming this, or did we used to give out a welcome pack to new residents?
Still do.
You got one.
I got one when I moved.
Yeah.
Steve, we certainly still
Do we still do that?
Yes, we do.
Brilliant. Can I see one? Yeah. Thanks.
Do we?
What? Yeah. So much of our stuff is just something we do. Maybe I'll do the list, but yeah.
So how do people know they're available? People who come into the front counter and say,
They've come into the counter, they're available at Discover Froome. That was the thing. Always.
Through like estate agents and stuff, I think. So I think because I rent my flat, it was like it came through like the people I rent through. Okay. That's how I think I got mine.
Yeah, estate agents come and get them. We share them out.
okay, good, keep up the good work. I think we'll draw a line under this, but thank you very much, Nikki and Hannah, for what you've done and the report you presented tonight. Sarah.
Yeah, you've seen the paper. Any questions? We're doing fine. And
I've mentioned this.
You've got a question, Fiona.
Yeah, I've got a couple. You mentioned Hennyway Ramp. I just wanted to say, while I'm thinking of it, that is going to need doing sooner rather than later. It's actually getting it is about to go. I run down it every day.
you did say when you were going to speak
and
to
I
Rob
just,
direct.
as I'm thinking about it, I say run, I don't actually run at all really, but you know, I'm just sort of saying. And I just love the fact that we now get every single payment. It is fascinating. Over 100. I mean, it's hefty to go through, but it's also, it does give you an insight, I'll be honest. Right. That's a bit harsh. I just wanted to flag up what I think about it. Staff and councillor training. Obviously, there's like a budget for it. I think it's really great that like staff and councillors can like follow their interests and like go on things. And I was just wondering whether we wanted to take a, like maybe at some point have a look at whether there is like some training that we think staff and councillors, whether individuals, I go with this, would benefit from, and be a bit more proactive about it. What be helpful? I think there might be a few things. Including, I'll say it, gender equality training after this morning's WhatsApp conversation.
Actually, Fiona, what we should do is have Laura sign all the councillors up to iHasco, which is our online training package. You can do 40-minute, 2-hour programs for really small amounts of money.
Yeah, I just think there may be a few things that we might want to look at. I think a few things have been mentioned. I'm not just mentioning, it's not just that, but like there have been a few things have been mentioned where we might want to do like deeper training.
I think Fiona's talking about sending certain people on certain training courses.
I'm talking about general,
whether they want to go on it or not.
talking about general training for everyone. But I guess I'm just saying that it could be quite good to have a conversation about what kind of training we want as an organisation, and if there are any gaps, and if there's any specific trainings we might want to look at.
Great. I think the HR committee could have a look.
On our radar, I think, especially how we handle training requests, what's constituted as essential, and then probably how we feed councillors into that. And I'd be interested to know whether you would want to commission trainers to come to the town hall and deliver training, or whether you'd be willing, or you're thinking more about having the ability just to book on things that are either online or that you need to travel to, like just to get a better sense of
I think
the need is and what the requirement is and what the take up would be, because it's intensive to arrange training and get it set up and have it on a day that everyone can attend, and
it doesn't have to be necessary for everyone. I guess I'm thinking like I just had a thought about something that I think sort of like people coming in, and not just sort of the online, and I guess sort of on specific. You asked another question. I can't think what it was, and I've forgotten. It was at the beginning.
I asked many questions. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's just about getting a sense of. It'd be nice maybe just to have a chat and just get a sense of what councillors would like, how they would like it delivered.
The thing, I've requested it previously, like the fact that councillors are expected to go in and chair meetings, and I've never had facilitator training. Like personally, I think all councillors should be offered facilitator training, and I think that's actually quite an essential.
Oh, but I think SAUC offer training chairs. Or
It's chairperson ship training, so really weirdly
we can look into others.
worded, but that is specifically on managing a room and making sure people are included. It's not really facilitator.
No, I mean more like general facilitator training, like yeah. And then I guess there's, I think like I don't know, like stuff we've spoken about. There's been conversation around like business, like more like I don't know, like skills and like, I don't know, like theory of change training. It's something that I'm like could be really helpful for some managers and some councillors, or like I don't know. I'm just sort of saying ideas now, but I guess that's sort of taking a bit more of a proactive approach and thinking, are there any like skill gaps or things, and just could be helpful. And there are other I think, and I do genuinely think like different equality trainings would be really helpful as well, like neurodiversity in the workplace trainings, stuff like that.
So we, through our sort of performance management review process within the staff body, and as you see, we've got a training budget. So that kind of brings up the training that we plan for. We also take advantage of the kind of training that's come up. What was the one that was this week that we sort of noticed that it was managing performance appraisals. So we're making that available to all the staff just because it came up and it looks a good thing for particularly new managers, but all managers generally. You mentioned two things, Fiona. One is sort of what Laura will do. We'll talk to probably you two, Steve and you, about kind of what training you think might be useful for councillors. And we can then see what we do with that and see if we can afford it. bearing in mind Laura's thing about it takes quite a lot of resources to plan it, and then if no one turns up, that's a bit of a shame. But I think you also said right at the very beginning, sort of joint training. Did you say it, or did I pick it up wrong? Joint for staff and councillors together. Did you say that? Yes, I thought you did. Yeah. So maybe we could explore that, because I think that would be good team building activity.
Have to be like, you know, I'm not suggesting we do like 10 trainings a year or something. I'm just saying maybe if there was like, you know, 1 or 2 trainings that we look at doing a year that's in specific skills or something. I don't know, but yeah. I just saw it, and it's a bit of a hodgepodge batch of trainings when you look at it all in one go. And I just thought maybe, yeah, we could do something.
Cool. Okay, so we've got people looking at that, have we? Yeah, go ahead.
And I always say this every year because Sarah wouldn't do it, but the external auditor's report came back with a big tick and a well done. And the amount of work that goes in through the year to that, and then completing a really quite extensive form and ensuring that it's high quality stuff and there are no questions asked about the external auditors, I just think is an enormous tick for Sarah and her team.
For Hannah, particularly, as ever. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I also say now ably supported by Becca? Thank you.
Yeah. So that one was, where's the recommendations on this one?
Yeah, you have to note them and then approve the reports.
Okay. Okay. Can we have a look at that? Yeah, got it. So note the external auditor's notice, approve the internal auditor's report, approve Appendix 5.3, approve Appendix 5.4, and approve Appendix 5.5. Steve would like to propose that, and we'll second that. Fiona and I will vote in approval. Thank you.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Sarah. You know there's a lot of work gone in that, especially since it became £100, and it's a lot more inputs for people to do. Okay. Get out more. Agenda item 6. Laura's got her own piece now. She's going to update us on starters, levers, health and safety and safeguarding.
One ahead of yourself.
Yeah. Make it up.
As always, it's in the report. I did say there would be a verbal update on safeguarding. The only thing that's been brought to my attention recently is that the probation service brought an issue to our attention that we have addressed, and it has just led to a slight different way in which we handle some of the room bookings at certain times in the town hall, just to ensure that our safeguarding is top notch and we're being aware of that. So just to say that that has been brought to our attention and we are already responding.
Any more on that? I fell over in the park yesterday, but that was my fault, not the council's.
You fell over, you didn't have a fall. You're not old enough to have a fall.
I took a tumble. And broke my hip. No, it wasn't one of those yet, hopefully. Thank you. So we're just noting that, aren't we? We don't need to say anything on that. So the last item is agenda item 7, planned items for this meeting, the Oversight Committee for the remainder of the year. As you know, we've increased the frequency of these meetings. And we asked Paul to think about what to plan upcoming agenda items and put them out so we can sort of prepare for them, I guess. So these are the list of proposed meetings coming up until the end of the council year. Paul, would you like to say something on this?
No.
All right. Just a thought. Something that came up when we were talking earlier, particularly with your work and everybody's work, is the RAG rating the best way of looking at these? I know Fiona raised this and Andy Jones has raised this, because you're doing what you're asked to do, so it's all green. So that looks like you've done your job, it's also almost over, but there's still things going on. So is there another way of looking at progress of progress of work, rather than just say, we haven't done it or we have done it? Fiona, do you have any ideas on that? You raised it with me, I know.
I feel like I could have ideas if I thought about it, but I don't know. I just feel like rag ratings is just so blah. Like, they don't really mean anything. They're just, I don't know. I don't get them.
I think there's still loads of ways you can look at this, isn't there? The way I always look at these things is we have projects which have a start, a middle and an end, and then we have ongoing work. So like maintenance of the town hall is never going to finish. It's always going to be ongoing. There's always going to be stuff that needs to be done in maintenance of the town hall. But a project like, I don't know, let's for instance say, I don't know, I can't think of one now. A picture of room, yeah. It's a it's a piece of work that results in a document and a presentation. So as I say, that's got a start and a finish. So to me, it would be easier to break the work down into those two component parts. What is a project? What is ongoing? And on the project, you can report it's on track, it's not on track, it's on budget, it's not on budget. And with ongoing, it's just an update. This is what's happening. This is how much. Like the town hall could be. Well, we set this out as an EMR, and we're sort of on track with that. We're not on track with it and stuff like that.
Can I just point out that from a communication point of view, the RAG rating is pretty good to highlight where there's a problem. So greens are, all great. And you can really quickly see from a public understanding if there's a problem. Obviously, yes, something is only red if there is a problem or if there's a barrier or if there's a something, but generally it will mean, extra attention, or there will be a reason why that's happening, and presumably you'd want that pointed out in the report that sits alongside the RAG ratings.
But I guess then we need a common understanding of what those green, amber, red, and something, because it's very easy to sort of just assign a colour, and I just sort of feel a bit like, if there's no sort of, are there guidelines for you guys as to like what constitutes a green, what constitutes an amber, what constitutes a red, and is that sort of?
If there were reds, there would definitely be notes as to why.
So Fiona, what we within the managers group, we had a discussion on this because there was. So what does green mean again?
Yeah.
And I wrote something down that says green means this, orange means this, and red means this. So I can share that with all councillors. I can certainly do that. But if you remember, the reason we were on, and I'm not defending this at all, because I'm really happy to change it, because does feel a bit clunky. But the reason we were asked to do it, so we had each section of the work programme, and councillors wanted a quick way to understand whether everything was on track, therefore don't need to worry about it. But as Rachel was saying, what are the red ones? They wanted to focus on the red ones. And that was, so it gave, and each section of the work programme now has a table and a RAG rating next to it. So councillors can really easily see things that are slacking or being delayed or cancelled for whatever reason. And those are the subjects that were meant to be the most interesting to councillors, because they're sort of to understand, for us to explain why something's gone red in the work programme that was agreed. What's wrong with that? But there are many ways of reporting back. I mean, as Steve just described another way, but that's what we were asked to do.
I fully understand that.
No,
I'm not, because I think it comes back to the conversation around internal comms that we've had quite a lot recently, that there's sometimes, the reason I said that was so great to hear from you guys. Like, I think sometimes, and you send around your updates, Nick, you're particularly good at doing them, like the monthly updates, and I read them, but sometimes I feel like I'm just looking at words on a page and I don't quite get it, and it's not because I'm not trying, like and I just sometimes think like, sometimes I think we get too much, but we get like a flat wall of information sometimes as councillors, rather than like specific bits of things that we want to or would be interesting to know about. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and Stephen, discuss it a bit more and think, and how we could do it. But it does feel a bit clunky, and I'm not sure that I personally get much, understanding. But I know
It's also not just for councillors, though.
No.
It's for the public.
But I think the work programme is too, which members of the public are looking at the work programme is too complicated. Like, which members of the public are looking at the work programme?
People do, though.
But I don't, maybe if the work programme was simpler and there was, I don't know what the answer is, but it doesn't feel like we've quite got it right at the moment.
I think there's going to be quite a few ways to cut this one up, isn't there, really? And maybe we need to just sit down and work out how we do that. I mean, I can, off the top of my head, I can think of a couple of other ways, but I'm not really sure I should be bringing those ideas up now in a public forum. I think it's something that we probably need to talk about and then bring a few options back to a public forum. That would be my call.
That's fine, we can do that.
Okay, let's have a discussion out of this meeting. So what we have, so the recommendation is that, as laid out here, these are the topics that are going to be coming up for the end until the end of our year. So, any more questions on that? So, in that case, I'll propose that as the chair of this meeting. Anne's going to second it. Steve and Fiona will vote in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you. Any more for any more? I know we don't do AOB, so in that case, there's nothing left on the agenda. And so we will meet again on Wednesday, 11th of December. Thank you.